Hey, Lawrence here. Welcome to another Business Beatz episode. Today we're doing a quick take. Today we're talking about sales. So I had a lot of questions coming around the sales process for a business, right? So I'm going to run through the logistics of sales in an organization, in any type of organization, whether you're a pie shop, retailer, or you're a company, turning over $100,000 or $100 million. It doesn't really matter. The sales logistics essentially have the same methodology, right? So I'm just going to smash through that, and hopefully you can pick up some learnings from that. And I'll talk about different verticals and different variances in between selling as well. So most companies will have a sales process. Well, they all have a sales process, not most, but all of them. It's different for a retailer, right? So in a retailer, you're probably looking for the customer to walk past the shop. So you've got to figure out what time they walk past, what's the highest conversion rate of the day, do you have the right products on offer, do you have enough of them as a price right, all that sort of stuff, right? In a corporation and in a company, it's more about advertising. So what does your advertising model look like, right? So, and your marketing model look like? How do you acquire your customers? So first you have to figure out where is your customer and who is your customer and what would interest your customer, because you have to resonate with your customer. You can't just put advertising out there for the sake of it. Like I see businesses put a nice photo on Instagram thinking that their customer will resonate with it. And they may, but are they a buying customer? Probably not. So you need to focus on selling, and the way to do that is to drive sales. Sales do not happen on their own. You have to drive them. And that is something I learned very early on in my life. I did work in sales, and it's probably one of the best things I ever did, because it opens you up to so much and makes you very uncomfortable, right? But sales is a byproduct of revenue, which is a byproduct of growth and success, right? So you need it. And don't shy away from it. I think companies push sales into the background, and they don't really put it at the front of their business, because no one likes a sales guy, right? The car sales guy who tries to close you on the deal, who gets a little bit pushy with you. Like, that's very old school. If you're doing that now, and if you're cold calling, you need to change that strategy, because that won't work. Sure, you're going to have some wins, but it's not going to be as comparative to if you use 21st century sales methodologies, right, and principles. So I suggest you change that if you're doing that. So what I can do though is I can talk about us and our companies and our journey and what we've learned. So I'll move off the retail sector. Retail's a bit of a different game. To get scalability, you need to have growth, right? So that means you need multiple sites to get in front of more people. Use advertising to get that traffic through the door. And then you have to convert that into a sale. But if they walk through the door, they'll normally buy something. So now is the product good enough to attract them? And do you have enough of them where, there's that principle of, do you want fries with that? So if you sell them one product, can you sell them 2 or 3 products while they're in your real estate, all at the same time? So that's something really important to consider. Also with Uber Eats now, if you're a food retailer, it's huge, right? You just need to figure out your margins and get onto those sorts of platforms where you can sort of do that, where you're pushing that message out there and increasing sales without having to spend a lot on advertising and marketing. I'm going to talk more about the corporate sector. So sales in a corporate business, and I'll talk specifically about what we do, right? So we have a sales team, we have a marketing team who also manage the advertising. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to have the model for sales. So that methodology is, how do we attract a customer? How does a customer first engage with us? And then what are the steps and the processes as we nurture that customer all the way through to them paying us or putting their credit card details in. So it's the same thing for SaaS as well. So if you're selling SaaS, software as a service, you need to figure that out as well. The mechanisms are still the same, but the touch points are different. So in a non-SaaS business, you might have a sales team where it's nurtured by e-com, moves into a sales team, and the sales team are there to close the deal, and a small percentage or proportion will go to an e-com strat, right? Which is sort of how we run in our business. So we run on a principle of scalable revenue. So we're trying to build now, we're pretty old school. We've been punching pretty hard for quite a few years in terms of, do we need to Do we need to insert e-com into our methodology and our modeling? Yes, we do, and we're doing that now. So we're looking at attracting clients to purchase online without a human involved. I still think humans are an important part of the sales process, and I think people who spend a lot of money really do want to speak to somebody to get confidence and trust, right? Those are two important things that I think the sale at a high yield requires. So there's math out there on this. So if you're selling a product for $49.95, the e-com strat really works well, right? Because someone's going to be okay to lose $49.95 if the product turns up and it's crap. Like, I do that on Facebook. Sometimes I buy a product, test the shopping cart to test the process. It's a $99 product. Well, I don't care if I use it or I don't use it because it's 99 bucks. Now, flip that. What if it was a $5,000 product? You need more touch points in a higher yield product than you do in a low yield product, right? So, I might need to go to a landing page for a $100 product. I'll do a bit of reading and then I'll buy the goddamn thing. I don't really care. But if it's a $5,000 product, I'm going to spend 30 days researching that product. I'm going to check in it on, I'm going to look at some of the testimonials. I'm going to go through some of the reviews. I'm going to the landing page. I'm watching the video, right? So now that's sort of nurturing. Now I'm talking about nurturing a customer to get through to the sales process right before you convert them into a deal. So you really got to think about all of that. Like, what are you doing in your business to do that? And here's the other thing, is that you need to understand who your customer is. So when you advertise to them, they see your ad and they resonate with it. And then they're like, I like these guys, I want to buy that product. I think it's going to be really good for me. So what are you going to do that? You really need to think about the logistics of that sales process for your business. I suggest you write it down. That's what we do. We certainly I use a mind map to map it all out, and I sort of look at where the lines go for the customer, right? But the simple sale of it is that you need to focus and drive it, right? Sales has to be driven. So now that's one part. So sales team, you've got sales agents, you're advertising, you're using Meta, Google, organics to bring the lead in. Those leads need to go through into a CRM, and then the sales agent calls the customer and runs through a process. So what does the process look like? Well, look, you need to nurture them. For us, it's 3 call attempts, and then we ask them to come on board with us, right? So, and normally it's a discovery call, then it's an information session, and then it's basically a close call, right? That's sort of how we run. For us, that lands around the 14-day mark because we've been able to track the metrics on that. So we build our strategy around what the math tells us, right? So really consider that. I think that's a really important thing for sales in a business. And here's the thing, you need sales in a business. Don't hide it in the back room, like I said. Put it in the front and really focus on it and have revenue, by the way, is a responsibility of all managers in the business. It's not just the sales manager. You know what I mean? You can't, it's not rely, you can't expect all sales to land on the manager. It's just too much. It should be the responsibility of the entire management team to drive sales in the business. So you need to build a culture around that. And I'll talk about culture shortly. I just want to step on e-com. So e-com's huge, right? I think e-com is a good strategy. I think it's getting bigger and bigger. I think now 30% of all sales outside of bricks and mortar are done through e-com. And e-com comes in many different verticals. There's so many layers to it, it's crazy, right? But I'm just going to speak about one simple layer, is that we do both. We have a sales team, touch point, and then we have e-com. So they might go through and buy the product on e-com, right? But if we can't get them on e-com, what we do is we nurture the customer and we push them into the sales team. So then the human calls them, has a conversation. They talk about stuff, we build trust, rapport, confidence, and then they buy the deal. We take the payment over the phone. That's how we operate. But to get the e-com strategy right is really important. Like, how do you do that? You really need to think about all the steps in it. You need to think about how do you resonate with the customer, what information do they want to get? And then shopping cart, like how effective is your shopping cart? Because if your shopping cart has a little wheel on it that turns too long, they're going to drop off, right? So there's all these little, even the button, these little things are so critical to get right. So you have to research customer experiences. Like to get, product market fit for an e-com strat, you need to really consider and think about it a lot because there's so much stuff in it, right? Like how do you move the customer through seamlessly through a sales funnel, for lack of a better term, to click the button, put their credit card details and buy it, and then send them the confirmation or whatever else they need, or send them the product, right? You really need to think about how that's going to work. And if it's not seamless, it'll cost, right? You will lose sales, and you'll be surprised of how inefficient. Like, you could build 99% of the e-com strat, including the shopping cart, to perfection. But if 1% is wrong at the point of sale, it'll drop off. You just won't get it. That's how important it is to get it right. If you don't know how to do that, you need to bring somebody in. Otherwise, it's going to take you 12 months to figure it out. So you need to A/B test that stuff all the way through with the customer, right? So we actually look at the customer live on the landing page as they go into the shopping cart. We find out where the cursor is going, where their finger is going, what they're scrolling to, and we normally find they'll just want to get straight to the point. FAQs and price, right? We see them click through the cart and then they drop off the cart. So this, on one of our products, that's happening. So we're trying to figure out what that is. But we're looking at it very closely every day, and we're making small alterations. And when we get it right, we know that it's a proven system. We'll leave it for 30 days and track it, and then we'll look at the metrics. And if it's working, you can roll that out with everything else. So just do it for one product first. You don't have to do it for everything, unless of course you've got a consultancy firm working with you who are charging you a bucket full of cash. But they're proven and they know what they're doing. So I think that's really important. The last thing I want to talk about is culture. So if you're, so the e-com strat's an e-com strat, right? Like, I don't think there's a lot of cultural verticals inside of culture for e-commerce. But if you've got a touch point that's a sales team and a management team and a business with these people in it, like we have behind me, you need to have a culture of sales. Like, if you want to drive sales, especially if you're at startup 1, 2, 3 years and you need to drive sales, you sort of need to think about that. Like, we talk about sales all the time and put it on the table. So we want to be transparent about it. We want to be honest about it. And when sales is down, talk about it, find solutions, execute. But there needs to be a culture around it, because what happens normally is the company's relying on sales. And if the sales team are not performing, no one really talks about it. Or they just hide under a blanket and hope that it's going to be okay. That doesn't work. Yeah, that's simply not a strategy. A strategy is to attack it, right? Which is what we do. That's just how we do it. I'm not saying that works for everybody, but it works for us. So we're heavily reliant on the human touch point, right? E-com's great for us, but we are still learning that game, and that's going to take us many years to perfect that. But what we do know is that even in the 21st century, right, people still want to talk to people. They still want that confidence and trust that when they spend the money, that they're going to get what they are going to get what they ask for, and that the company's reputable, that the product's good, that they're going to be supported. If you have a service-based product, if it's a retail product, they want to know if the quality's good. What are the customers saying about it? Is it going to last? Is it actually going to get to me, or is it not going to turn up? So these are all the things you've got to consider in sales. I'm just going to say this: sales is critical. Drive sales. You have to drive sales. It just doesn't happen on its own. So you have to move fast, right, through that sales process. That's how I see it. And I've been driving sales in our companies for so many years, I can't remember. And not just in the companies I own now, but when I started off as a sales guy, I always knew that, I can make a lot of money selling, but I also knew that it's going to give me the skills that I need to build a business. Because if I don't know how to understand sales, and here's the thing, if you're an entrepreneur looking to start their own company, you want to go and work in sales, because you need to understand all the touch points, the algorithms, the marketing, the advertising, the e-com, the P&L, the margin, the gross margin, the EBITDA, all that stuff you need to understand, right? When you go and do that for an employer, they'll teach you that. And if you're good enough and you're a top performer and a closer, you'll earn $1 million a year. But you have to be good at it, right? So you don't always have to go out and drive sales on your own. You can do it inside an existing company. I think they call that an entrepreneur, right? So you could do that. So just think about that. But look, I guess the essence of this episode is drive sales, be focused on sales. You don't need to put it in the back room, put it in the front room and work with it, right? Because without revenue, the company does not exist and it cannot support its employees. I think that's really critical. Look, I hope you found something that you liked or that you think may work for your business. Love to hear any comments. If you got them, just drop them through. And we're happy to come back and answer any of those comments. If you haven't already, look, we're a non-profit venture, So click the subscribe button, hit the bell, wherever that may be on the screen. We'd love for you to subscribe. We try to push out as much content and good content as we can. And we've got some great interviews coming up with some pretty awesome entrepreneurs and artists. So stay tuned for that. Really appreciate your watching and look forward to speaking to you next time. Thanks.